Satnam. This is Satpata coming to you again this week after a traveling hiatus. And I'm coming today to talk about anger. Clearly, in response to life, we all experience anger. And if you aren't experiencing anger, you're not awake. You're not paying attention. But for some people, anger is more comfortable than others. And for some people like me, anger is the default emotion. It's my first go-to response to life. And so I've had a lot of experience with anger. I've had a lot of addressing and looking at my habit of anger. So years ago, I was working in the nonprofit organizations here in Yogi Bhajan's Mother Ashram in Espanola. And I had this profound reaction to things. And in my own body, I realized I was making myself sick. I was getting so angry about things that I had no control over that I was actually making myself sick. And so I had to look at it because I knew that if I had another strong response in that same way, again, my adrenals might never recover. And when we look at different ways to address these obstacles, or sometimes they're called the five passions or the enemies in Dharma, the Buddhist approach is renounce, regret, refuge, and resolve. And so you see it and you renounce it, the behavior, you regret it, you express remorse, you take refuge, right? You seek a form of grace through the Guru, through the Dharma, and then you resolve. You have to have a strong resolve to actually shift the behavior. So there is this applied consciousness approach in Buddha Dharma. And in our Dharma, in the way Yogi Bhajan talked about the relationship to these five obstacles, lust, anger, greed, pride, and attachment, he said, look, you're never going to get rid of it. Stop trying to become, that's essentially the path of yoga for eons and eons, is you would disappear into the mountains or into the forest and you would run away from your own experience of life, trying to remove yourself, right? The fifth R, remove yourself. And instead he said, use it. You can't get rid of it. So turn that emotion into devotion, right? So what does anger in today's world look like when you turn it from emotion and commotion to devotion? How do we transmute and transform the anger into something that is potent and useful to us? Well, I think we have the best example, obviously, in these young men and women from Parkland, Florida, and their response to the most recent shooting there. Never again. So they've turned that trauma into a purpose. And I think all of us can use our stories, our own histories, to fulfill a purpose. My work in recovery is all about that. We don't shut the door on the past. Instead, we use it to fuel and inform a meaningful life. And so when we think about anger and we think about resolving to change our anger, the only thing that worked for me in that moment in my professional life when I had to figure out a way to address my anger so that I wouldn't make myself sick physically, but also so I wouldn't put my work life in jeopardy, my reputation, my professionalism. The only thing that worked was just simple acknowledgement, awareness, right? Kundalini yoga is the yoga of awareness. And so when the anger would arise, I would say to myself, I'm noticing the habit of anger. And I continued noticing the habit. And I recognized it as my own. I didn't say it's something from outside is making me angry, because that's not how it works. We only express what is within ourselves. So I just began with a simple statement. I'm noticing the habit of anger. Every time I got angry, I'm noticing the habit of anger. And as my awareness grew, as I noticed it, that simple consciousness, applied consciousness, shifted how I responded to life. Do I still get angry? Of course. It is my default mode. But how I apply it, how I use it, how I neutralize it has shifted with my awareness. So the simple fact of making awareness is our dharmic response to anger. And then turning that to devotion, turning the emotion, the commotion, and applying it to devotion. How can we find a path that we dedicate this energy, because that's all anger is. It's an energy of transformation. It's a way to move things. It's your digestion, right? It transmutes food into fuel. That's what anger is. So how does it become your fuel for your life, for your betterment, for your positive habits? So transmute it, transform it into something that is a blessing to someone else. That's our way. Satnam.